This time on Poll Hub, we're headed to the Republic of Texas. And our first of the season Texas poll is out. It has relatively few surprises on the Biden v. Trump race, but there is news on one of the only Senate seats Democrats have any chance of flipping this cycle. Then we're turning the show over entirely to our two student producers for a segment on TikTok, since none of the rest of us are even on it. Oh, but there is a surprise there. We thought it made sense to have them do the segment. We will see if we made a good decision. And we finish with a fruity fun fact about one of America's favorite desserts. Stumped? Well, you won't be. You'll have plenty to say on it. Lots to do. Let's get to it. And hi, everybody. Welcome to Poll Hub. I'm JD Dapper.
I'm Barbara Carvalho.
I'm Mary Griffith.
I'm Athen Hollis.
I'm Rebecca Hendricks.
And I am Lee Maringoff.
Well, hi, everybody. Another week, another poll. In fact, this is Texas. We are going to be doing different battleground states as we move our way through to November. Right now, we're taking benchmarks of a number of states we think to be competitive, or at least conventional wisdom suggests that they will be competitive, but not necessarily in Texas. Mary, why don't you give us the lowdown on Texas and where we stand in the presidential campaign?
So here's the context. In 2020, former President Donald Trump won the state by 5.5 points over Joe Biden. In this rematch, Trump has broadened his lead since 4 years ago to 11 percentage points among registered voters. However, Biden narrows that gap among those who say they definitely plan to vote in November. Trump's lead shrinks to 7 percentage points. Still a healthy lead, but it does get cut into when we look at that group.
And one thing that's really interesting is Trump is over that 50% marker here in Texas.
That's right, he is. And I do want to zero in, Barb, on the proportions among independents. Trump has a double-digit lead over Biden among this subgroup. Lee, why is this significant?
Well, it's a huge thing because both are doing very well among their base. And that's what's going on around the country. In order for Biden to be competitive in a state like Texas, he has to avoid the 21-point swing we're seeing from 4 years ago in Texas, where he actually carried independents by 6 and now trails by 15. So that becomes a critical group. And then there's other parts of his so-called coalition that are not as strong as he would like them. In fact, you've heard about young people in other states. Texas is showing a dramatic shift among that group as well. And so between independents, between young people, between some movement among people of color, Texas becomes, I guess we said it was a battleground state, but it's really not even purple at this point. I think the dreams of Biden to have Texas be a battleground just haven't materialized at this point.
You know, I was going to also mention that, Lee. Why do Democrats keep pointing to Texas? I mean, is it just about the demography? Because certainly in terms of election results, they have an absolutely uphill battle changing Texas even to a purple state. I mean, in 2008, McCain won the state by 12. Romney won it in 2012 by 16 points. Trump won it by 9 points in 2016. Granted, the smallest margin was last time, which Mary mentioned in 2020. But what do they think they can do here in terms of inroads?
Well, I think one of the things is that Mary identified this in the beginning, that among definite voters, the race does get a little narrower, and it's among groups that Biden could conceivably reassemble. So the people who dislike both of the candidates, the so-called double haters, for lack of a better phrase, that when you look at the definite group, Biden does much better among that group. He does better among the same people we talked about a minute ago, people of color, the young people, the Gen Z millennial crowd, the type of people who Trump is running up the score with to get to a double-digit lead shrinks somewhat around that. But, the demography of Texas has changed and the cities are different. So places like Dallas and Houston and Austin, these are different than they were. And these metro areas are becoming more Democratic. In fact, the mayors of these cities, it's not surprising to see Democrats as mayors, but the rural areas and other parts of the state where it still control the lion's share of the votes are not where they need to be. So the presidential race still is, wide. The Senate race, so you mentioned, is a possibility. And what does that look like here, Miss Mary?
What we're seeing is Ted Cruz has a 6-point edge among registered voters against his Democratic challenger, Colin Allred.
Yeah, and I think that, look, the Democrats are looking desperately for states to pick up because there's an expectation that West Virginia will go against them and then possibly other states as well. And then the majority in the Senate becomes jeopardized. There's a long shot in Florida, but I guess in Texas, because Ted Cruz only won by a couple points last time, but that's not the case, as you indicate right now, that the 6-point lead. The only thing the Democrats have going for them is that the Democratic candidate, Allred, is largely unknown and has low negatives. So the race will be on to see whether he can define himself or Ted Cruz defines him first. That race could get closer before it's all said and done because Cruz has high negatives.
I know we have to move on, but I did want to ask, what's motivating the electorate this election cycle? What are the issues that are top of mind for voters going into November?
Well, in Texas, not surprisingly, the whole border dispute and immigration, because of where it's located, becomes even more pronounced as an issue than we're seeing elsewhere, and it's certainly an issue elsewhere. But that we're seeing very much so in Texas, not surprisingly, and that doesn't do Joe Biden or the Democrats a whole lot of good.
So, you may have seen TikTok in the headlines lately. The House has passed a bill that would force the company ByteDance, which owns TikTok, to make a spin-off of an American-owned version. However, this has caused politicians to flip-flop opinions, political adversaries to agree, and kids across the country to flood senators' phone lines demanding that the app be saved. But why? What is the deal with TikTok?
Well, the TikTok app has grown like a crazy amount in the past few years.
That is true. The company has about 149 million monthly active users in the US alone.
Which is crazy. That's almost as many as Facebook and more than Instagram, Snapchat, or X.
And Americans spend nearly an hour per day on the app per eMarketer.
It also looks like about 1/3 of Americans say that they use TikTok, and around 1 in 7 say that they get their news there.
And this number only increases as you look at younger people. 1/3 of Americans under 30 get their news from TikTok.
Yeah, young users are just much more likely than their older counterparts to use TikTok in the first place. 62% of Americans under 30 say that they use TikTok in comparison to only 10% of those 65 and older.
And when you look back to 2019, TikTok was not Gen Z's favorite platform for following social media influencers. But in 2023, it's their go-to.
Yeah, and the growing popularity could be because Gen Zers are less likely to follow influencers on newsletters or personal websites than other generations are. And TikTok is primarily how they're following their favorite content creators.
And what I think is super interesting is that TikTok is mostly made up of the same content creators. The top 25% creators on TikTok post 98% of all publicly accessible videos.
Wow, so the content that's dominating the app is produced by a smaller group of influencers.
Yeah, no, exactly. And the typical TikTok user hardly ever posts, if they ever post. About half of all Americans on the site have never posted a video themselves.
Right, because TikTok is defined by its For You page, which is curated by an algorithm, and users generally like the content that the algorithm serves them. Last year, Pew found that 40% of users find the algorithm extremely or very interesting, while another 45% found it somewhat interesting.
So we've pretty much covered how TikTok is popular and which Americans are using it. But let's get back to what we touched on in the beginning. Why is TikTok in the headlines in the first place?
Right. Well, the House has just voted to require ByteDance to create a spin-off American-owned version of TikTok because of the company ties to the Chinese government.
Right. There's evidence that the Chinese government controls the algorithm and manipulates it to the detriment of the United States.
And all of this has led to some really strange views from politicians who typically can't agree on anything.
True. TikTok has Marjorie Taylor Greene and AOC actually agreeing. They both have said they do not agree with the choice to ban TikTok in the US.
Yeah, and this TikTok decision also has Trump going back and forth. When he was president, he called for TikTok to be banned, but just recently he did a complete 180 and now supports letting China keep TikTok as is on American phones.
And then there's the current president. Biden says he supports the House bill and is firm on his support to create an American version.
Republicans and Democrats both voted yes to the bill that has been described as a ban of TikTok by opponents, and Republicans and Democrats both voted no to that bill.
It looks like both sides of the aisle are agreeing on both sides of the argument, but do Americans really care?
Well, a majority of Americans believe that TikTok is a security threat to the United States. However, this varies widely depending on age and political stance. Younger people and liberals are less likely to believe that TikTok is a threat, and older Americans and conservatives are more likely to see it as a threat.
Yeah, just 13% of Americans under 30 say that TikTok is a major threat. And this number only climbs across age groups. It reached 46% among Americans 65 and older, according to Pew.
Yeah, and this could be because of the app's ties to the Chinese government. According to Gallup, 41% of Americans name China as the United States' greatest enemy today, making it the top perceived adversary for the fourth straight year. Russia ranks second at 26%, followed by Iran at 9%.
Yeah, and there's a partisan difference. China ranks first among Republicans and independents, but it is a distant second to Russia among Democrats.
All right, so let's get this straight. TikTok's popularity keeps growing, especially among young people, but a lot of American politicians have turned against it due to its connections to the Chinese government. And a lot of Americans are worried about TikTok, but not many younger people are. And all of this despite Americans naming China as our biggest enemy.
Yeah, it's a lot, but yeah. So what do we think of all this? Jay, as someone with a different perspective than us, what do you make of this situation?
So by different perspective, do you mean let's bring in the old guy? Is that what this is?
If that's what you want to say.
I want to turn the question on you real quick, and then I want to bring in someone who is more senior than I am in the pecking order at the mayor's poll. But do both of you use TikTok?
I sure do not use TikTok. I really don't have the brain for TikTok. I would be on it probably all day if I still had it. But at one time I did, and now I don't anymore.
Anna?
I do use TikTok. I checked my phone, my settings before we did this. I use it roughly 6 hours a week. So I'm using it about an hour a day.
Okay, so as I told you guys when we were first doing this segment, I'm on every social media platform practically, and have to be, for business and things. But I'm not on TikTok. I don't have it on my phone. And mainly the people I know are older than you guys, late 20s, early 30s, all the way up to my age and past. And I thought I really didn't know anybody on TikTok until this guy named Lee Miringoff. Don't know if you know him. Lee Miringoff, apparently, from what I'm told, is on TikTok. Lee, is that correct?
Okay. So there's lots of technological and communication innovations. As you know, I've a self-identified Luddite, but I feel a need to sort of at least keep pace with what's going on. Okay. So periodically I'll ask somebody, and sometimes it's a college student, like, hey, what's this? What's that? What's this? Do you use this? And so Marissa Hebert, who's a student, senior, she said, I'll make you a TikTok account. I think I was going for Instagram, which I think was more up my alley. I could be corrected. So now I am a TikToker. I guess that's what we call ourselves, right? A TikToker. I never post. So I heard you say about half or so never post. So I'd be afraid to post because I'm never sure what I'm sending out and who I'm sending it to. So I'm just too ignorant on that. I do know that people have periodically stuck something in my face and said, I'm doing a TikTok. How do you think about such and such? And then I talk, and I assume that's being sent somewhere. But anyway, so here's the problem with TikTok in a nutshell. To me, it's like you're sitting and you're watching TV, and you're just going from channel to channel to channel to channel, and anything can pop up. So here's one for you. Very educational. Can you name a candy using 2 letters. So they said, gee, I don't know. What do you think? I don't know. What do you think? Well, it's C and Y. That's how you spell candy in 2 letters. Uses C and a Y.
This is a TikTok
that's like clever, I guess, huh? Then there was a Taylor Swift thing.
Is this the TikTok dad jokes thing?
No,
or what?
no, that was...
This is on your For You page?
It was on what I saw. Then there was a Watch the Janitor. Then I could have learned about how my pancreas functions.
So the algorithm is working here, actually.
Whether the ref made the right call. And then I seem to have more Taylor Swift stuff. And that's probably because of the football boyfriend and not necessarily her. But I kind of get in that way. So, and I do have Maris showed up with something, which was fun. I thought that was okay. So that's what I got. And that was my quick rundown of TikTok. So I don't...
Lee, let me ask you, do you think that this content is catered towards you? Do you think that this is the type of content that you would like to be seeing on your TikTok?
Well, probably. I mean, I've never had problems with algorithms. I mean, look, I like dogs. So if I do something and I click on something with a dog, I then get 8,000 things with dogs. I get that. Okay, I get that. But if I want to move on, it's not exactly like I'm selecting. It's just they're sort of defining it. So maybe I don't want to see dogs that day. Maybe I want to see college basketball. So there's no control. I understand, this is the opposite of appointment viewing where I'll watch the news at 6:30 and 7 o'clock it's something else and 8 o'clock. So this is like, here it comes, folks. Stuff you like. In any particular order, on any particular topic. So that's a little too...
chaotic.
Chaotic.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There you
I
go.
can't even think in chaos.
No, that's okay. So
what do
I
you
have
make of... That's my critique. Yeah.
Right. I have a question for these two, though. The concern has been that China, the Chinese government has at least access to, if not control over the data and perhaps the algorithm. There is credible evidence that the algorithms are manipulated by the party, by the Communist Party, the Chinese government. Do you ever think, like, well, Rebecca, you don't use it. Do you ever think of that? Does that ever bother you? Do you think it's overblown? Do you think that all the apps are alike, so it doesn't matter? I'm curious.
I don't know. Here's the thing. Like, I use TikTok at the end of the day before I go to sleep to like have a little wind down, and then I go to bed. So like, I'm not getting political content off of TikTok. Like, that's not where I'm getting my news. I think it could be dangerous if that's where your source of all your information is TikTok. But like, also, I'm not looking at anything on there that's like, I don't care if anybody gets that information. Like, I'm not looking at anything crazy, so I don't know.
Yeah, but you said when you guys were going through the data, you were talking about how young people get the news from TikTok.
Yeah, I
So
think
others
And
are.
many people do.
I
yeah.
think that's where it gets
Many people do.
dangerous. Is like, I know a lot of my like friends here, they do get their news from TikTok, and I think that's where it gets dangerous. Is like if you're getting all your current event information off of the app.
So the news that people are seeing on TikTok is largely created by independent individuals.
Oh, okay.
So it'll be content creators that have branded themselves as news sources. Actually, kind of a funny news source that people have on TikTok is called Bikini Bottom News, which is SpongeBob based. It's like they have a cutout of a fish on SpongeBob that gives like breaking news. And now they have that doing like an AI voice reading like top headlines of the day. But it's not always accurate and it's not always like well sourced. So people come to cater and trust these sources, but it's not always accurate and it's not always a good source. So I think that at the same time, when I'm seeing these creators, I'm not thinking of them as like pawns in some kind of larger game or as being paid by the Chinese government or something like that. They are often like independent American people just making content on TikTok.
But Rebecca, why'd you stop using?
Why did I stop using TikTok? Well, because I just can't be on TikTok. Like, it's not even about TikTok. It is about TikTok. Like, I think that
Is it addictive?
if I scrolled, it's addictive. And also, if I scrolled on TikTok for an hour, I'd watch probably like over 100 videos. I couldn't name more than 5 of the videos I just watched in an hour. Like, I would probably watch 100 videos and I couldn't tell you what more than 5 of them are. And like the next day I would watch like 100 videos again. So I just take my content like from elsewhere. I try to watch like more long form content to keep my attention span up.
If you saw something and you liked it on TikTok, could you go back and find it again?
Yeah. It goes like into your likes, and then you can look at all the stuff you've liked throughout all time.
Okay. Because I did think now I don't know if I saw this on TikTok, but I did see, I don't know if the name George Carlin means anything to you folks. See, I was afraid of that.
Sure.
But he was a comedian, and kind of like, he was actually on the first Saturday Night Live as way back when in the 70s. And he's very, very innovative and funny, and it's sort of like little snippets of performances he did. And I'm not sure I saw that on TikTok, but I sure know I get it now 1 a day, 2 a day, 3 a day. Now, that's not manipulating. I think they're just spoon feeding stuff that I thought I liked. I mean, at some point, I assume if I stop watching them, they'll move me on to something else, but I don't know. Jay, what is the concern about China manipulating our algorithms? I mean, what are they supposed to be selling us some, propaganda or something? What is this
Sure,
about?
it's the algorithm in TikTok is the reason you see the things you see and other people see other things. It's the reason that Rebecca can watch an hour and watch 100 videos and not remember of them, but want to keep watching them, right? It is, I mean, I think it is addictive. The algorithm, the evidence, and there's a lot of talk and not a lot of evidence that's been presented from the security community, national security community, that the algorithms are designed to accomplish aims of enemies of the United States by, for instance, fomenting partisan anger, by pushing people further left, further right. In Israel and Hamas, in that war, there's been a lot of talk about what the algorithms are feeding people. Mm-hmm. And all that. So there is a serious side to all of this. But before we go, I do want to circle back because, Lee, you are literally the only non-college student that I know that is on TikTok, except that I found out from App that there's somebody that you know in your life that is someplace between in Lee's and my generation that is a big TikTok fan too.
Yeah, so my dad used to hate TikTok.
I was afraid of that.
Yeah, he used to hate TikTok. And then I don't know, I think it was around when he started thinking of retiring, he downloaded it. And now he's addicted to it. And I think he probably watches it more than I do. So I don't know. I think he's probably one of the older people that I know that use it. I don't know a lot of people older than me that use it, but he does.
Is he a big George Carlin fan, you think?
I gotta say, the George Carlin content is not huge on TikTok. I do have to say, I think this is just
very niche content. Very niche content.
Well, the fun fact time is always an opportunity for me to weigh in on something different. And I'm going to weigh in a matter that's very different this time, because the fun fact, which was done by 60 Minutes and Vanity Fair in 2011, asked, what is your favorite flavor of Jell-O? Jello. And here's the answers. Cherry tops, 27. Strawberry, 25. These are national audience. And here's where I clock in. 11% said none. You will never find me inhaling, chewing, swallowing, or anyways coming within a foot or two of a cup of Jell-O. I don't even know. Is that what you say? Cup of Jell-O?
You've never been in the hospital overnight, have you?
I know,
shocked,
and that's no, I haven't.
Shocked.
But that's probably one of the reasons I associate, those little cups. Oh, here, you got 2 hours to live, but have some Jell-O. It just doesn't seem to work. Okay. Anyway, what are the rates to you on this? Now that I've raised the level.
Well, I thought what was interesting here was we do look at a number of these questions on a variety of sometimes odd topics. And there's often quite a few people who don't want to weigh in. And what I found really surprising was there was only 1% of Americans who said don't know or they didn't want to answer. and just 1% that said other. I mean, I'm not sure what the other meant because
There's about
there
15 varieties of Jell-O listed here. I have no idea what that person.
maybe they couldn't choose. But I thought it was interesting that Jell-O is actually something that we can all weigh in on. Literally, everyone has an opinion on Jell-O, even if it's a 0, it's a no, it's a not on my plate kind of opinion.
Well,
You didn't answer the question though, Barb. What Jell-O should I offer you?
Yeah, I'm not a Jell-O fan, and like everybody else, I kind of associate it with kind of hospital food, whether it's been served to me or to others I've been visiting. But if you twisted my arm and I had to have some Jell-O, I'm with the plurality. 27% cherry, I think, is actually the only Jell-O I've ever eaten.
So,
Mary?
Barb, I actually have a different perspective on this. I remember my grandmother making Jell-O. I mean, not just the cups, but like when you actually, heat the Jell-O and make the Jell-O and put it in a mold, which was always a lot of fun. But I really am in the minority. I like green Jell-O. Green Jell-O gets
Ooh.
a bad rap, and I like lime Jell-O. My kids do like Jell-O. I know you all hear way too much about my kids, but I'm just going to say it. There may actually be some Jell-O in my fridge right now, and I think the choices tend to be cherry, strawberry, and the lime green Jell-O. So,
Jay the Dapper,
Well-
what do you got on Jell-O?
So,
I think
as
you
always,
like Jell-O.
As always, I have alternative thoughts about this poll. One, it's an open end, and many of the Vanity Fair 60 Minutes polls have not been, but this is, and I kind of like that because keep a good way in. Two, green, Mary, is not a flavor, it's color. But green is on here.
But lime.
No, I know.
Lime,
Lime
it's
is on
lime,
here.
yeah.
Lime is on here at 7%, and green is on here. Green's not a flavor, but I love that. Pineapple is on
2%
here.
green. 2% green.
So pineapple's on here. You can't make Jell-O with pineapple because there's acid or whatever in pineapple that won't allow gelling. So people lied about that, or they made it up. And then
No, wait. Hang on a second, Jay. Hang on a second. I have seen lots of fruit in molded Jell-O. So there
That's
may
not
be
pineapple
something to
Jell-O.
it.
You can put kiwis in Jell-O, but that doesn't make it kiwi Jell-O. Okay, so my last one. Banana? Is there really a banana Jell-O?
Well, that's what I thought too, Jay. There are flavors on here that I never thought
Yeah.
Jell-O made.
And my
Well,
last
there's an
thought is,
opportunity there. All right, let's see the TikTok generation of Jell-O college students. What is a snack in the townhouses that you live in?
Lee, I'm here with you. I'm not eating Jell-O. I'm absolutely not. I will not be doing that. There's not a flavor of jelly you'll get me to eat. But when I think of Jell-O, I don't think of hospitals. I think about like the 1950s, like Jell-O craze. Like I'm thinking about like Jell-O salad. I'm thinking about like savory Jell-O. That's where my mind goes, and it really makes me not want to eat it.
Did you say the 1950s?
Yeah.
How would one?
You know, like all those-
She read
TikTok.
about it.
I
in her-
read, I listen. I'm
Wow.
cultured.
I'm impressed. I'm impressed. And Athen, does Jell-O make its way to the state of Maine?
It does. I love Jell-O. I would say that I'm in the minority in this group. I love Jell-O. I would say strawberry.
And any particular flavor?
Oh, strawberry. And if you haven't had peach Jell-O, you should try it. It's really good. I would say peach and strawberry. But yeah, my grandmother used to make like Jell-O salads, and while I don't love those, regular Jell-O, I love.
Wow.
See, it's got to
a
be the
topic for
association.
everybody.
It's got to
You
be
know,
the association.
next week we should talk about pudding because I have a very different answer when it comes to chocolate pudding.
Wait,
But that's-
Lee, hang on one second. Jay intrigued me. I want to hear his last point about Jell-O.
my last point about Jell-O was that I associated it not with the hospitals, but with being sick as a kid. I had strep throat, like a lot. And so it's an automatic association. Jell-O, sick, not eating Jell-O. And so you're right. It's association. Athens' association is mom or grandma or whatever, right? It's family, it's home, it's dessert. My association is burning throat. So, yeah.
I think we're going to move on, but what a topic, folks. Something for everybody. We'll see you next week.
Watch that wobble, see that wiggle, taste that jiggle, Jell-O brand
That'll do it for Poll Hub this week.
Poll Hub is produced by the Marist Poll at Marist College in Poughkeepsie, New York.
Mary Griffith is our executive producer. Casey Schaff is our production supervisor.
The Poll Hub team includes Athen Hollis and Rebecca Hendricks.
If you enjoy Poll Hub, please consider leaving a review.
Positive reviews help other listeners like you find us.
If you'd like to learn more about polling and survey science, check out the Marist Poll Academy, our free online learning portal.
If you have questions for us, tweet them at us at Marist Poll.
Remember, you can always tell your smart speaker to play Poll Hub.
And with any luck, it'll cooperate.
Finally, wherever you listen to Poll Hub, there is a subscribe button. Click it and the latest episode will be ready for you in your podcasting app as soon as it's released.
We'll see you next time.
Jello, gelatin of all desserts. You'll love the one that tastes so light and makes such